In 380 AD, Emperor Theodosius made Christianity the official religion of Rome. It was a decision that reshaped the empire and the faith itself. Most people see this as the turning point, the moment when Christianity truly triumphed over paganism. But here's the twist: Rome wasn't the first. Decades earlier, a small kingdom at the edge of empires did something no one had ever dared before. A land where temples stood on mountaintops with fire altars and pagan gods converted to Christianity. This is the story of the conversion of Armenia. Armenia exists today as a small nation in the Caucasus, but its roots go far deeper. For most of its history, Armenia lived in the shadow of Persian empires, the Achaemenids, the Parthians, the Sassanids, the great power of the East, rising and falling in different forms, but always looming over Armenia's borders. The first political entity, called Armenia, appeared in the late 6th century BC under the Irarid dynasty. The Iranids ruled first as client kings, satraps of the mighty Achaemenid Empire. After the fall of the Achaemenids, they established an independent kingdom. A new dynasty, the Artaxiads, rose in 190 BC under King Artaxius I. Armenia soon entered its golden age. Under Tigranes the Great, between 95 and 55 BC, the kingdom expanded dramatically, stretching from the Mediterranean Sea to the Caspian, from the Caucasus down into Mesopotamia. For a brief moment, Armenia was the most powerful kingdom east of Rome. But this glory was short-lived. From the 1st century AD, Armenia had been ruled by a branch of the Parthian Arsacid dynasty, under an arrangement in which Arsacid Persian princes governed Armenia but required Roman confirmation. This delicate balance allowed Armenia to survive between its two powerful neighbors, Rome and Parthia, for centuries. But everything changed in the 3rd century, when Persian king Ardashir I overthrew the Arsacids in Parthia and founded the new Persian Sassanid dynasty. Determined to restore the ancient glory of the Achaemenid Empire, the Sassanids declared Zoroastrianism the state religion and laid claim to Armenia as part of their realm. What followed were decades of conflict, with Armenia being invaded in 252, with the Arsacid dynasty forced into exile in the Roman Empire, and Shapur I, Sasanian king, installing his son, Hormizd, on the Armenian throne. When Shapur I died in 270, Hormizd took the Persian throne, and his brother Narseh ruled Armenia in his name. Rome refused to accept Persian control over Armenia, and with its support, the Arsacid dynasty under Tiridates III regained the throne after years of conflict with the Sassanids that culminated in a decisive victory at the Battle of Satala and the subsequent Peace of Nisibis. Armenia's religion before Christianity was not so different from other Indo-European traditions. Like the Greeks or the Persians, the Armenians worshipped a pantheon of gods, powerful figures tied to the sky, to fire, to fertility, and to war. Religion here was never isolated. Standing on Persia's doorstep meant Armenia absorbed elements of Zoroastrianism, with its sacred fire altars and the eternal struggle between light and darkness. From the west came Hellenistic and Roman influence, where temples and myths blended with Armenian tradition. One temple still survives, the great sanctuary of Garni, built in the 1st century AD in honor of Mir, the sun god. Its columns and marble steps look more Roman than Armenian, a reminder of how many worlds met in this land. According to tradition, the first seeds of Christianity in Armenia were planted by two of the apostles themselves, Thaddeus and Bartholomew. They are remembered as the apostles of Armenia, figures who, according to legend, brought the gospel to this land in the very 1st century. Whether fact or myth, their legacy became central to the identity of the Armenian Church. But beyond legend, there is evidence of real Christian communities. By the 3rd century, Armenia already had an organized church. A letter attributed to Dionysius of Alexandria mentions a bishop named Marizanes, proof that Christianity was not only present but structured. These early communities were connected to larger Christian centers in Cappadocia and Syria, showing how faith spread along the region's cultural crossroads. The story of Armenia's conversion begins with a man named Gregory. Born into a noble family, Gregory was raised as a Christian and returned to Armenia to serve King Tiridates III. But when he refused to worship the old gods, the king threw him into a dungeon, a pit known as Khorenatsi, where he remained for 13 long years. Legend says that Tiridates, a fierce defender of the pagan gods, was struck by madness. He became like a wild beast, unable to rule. Desperate, his court remembered the Christian prisoner who had once defied him. Gregory was released, and with his prayers he healed the king. In gratitude, Tiridates embraced the faith of Gregory, and in the early 3rd century, Armenia became the first kingdom in history to declare Christianity its official religion. But beyond the myth, why did Tiridates III declare Christianity the official religion of Armenia? To answer that, we need to remember the same tension that had shaped Armenia for centuries, caught between Rome to the west and Persia to the east. Once again, the kingdom stood on the front line of two worlds. Turning to Christianity, Tiridates could separate Armenia from Persia, resisting its attempts to impose Zoroastrianism. He could align his kingdom more closely with Rome, whose leaders would hardly object to a Christian ally on Persia's border. After all, a Christian Armenia was far less likely to drift into the orbit of their greatest rival. And here's something crucial. Tiridates himself had been raised in the Roman Empire. He grew up within Roman culture, saw the rise of Christianity inside the empire, and likely understood that a change was coming. His own experience may have made him quicker to recognize that this new faith was not a passing trend, but the future. There may also have been domestic reasons at play. Christianity offered a stronger justification for royal authority. In a monotheistic faith, the king could present himself as God's representative on earth, a figure whose power was sanctioned by heaven. That made it easier to demand loyalty from nobles and people alike, uniting the realm around the person of the monarch. Indeed, in the centuries that followed, Christianity became a powerful tool for legitimizing royal authority. But for Tiridates in the early 4th century, this was uncharted territory. When Armenia took this unprecedented step, the link between faith and royal power was far from obvious, and any promise of stronger central authority lay far in the future. Practical advantages cannot be ignored either. Pagan temples in Armenia held great wealth and were controlled by a hereditary priestly caste. By embracing Christianity, Tiridates could strip these temples of their resources and weaken the old religious aristocracy. It was certainly useful for a king to break the power of these entrenched authorities. Yet, much of that wealth and influence soon passed into the hands of the new Armenian Church, which in time became an independent force of its own. Although these benefits were real, especially in retrospect, they are unlikely to have been the primary reason behind Tiridates' decision. Christianity entered Armenia through two main routes. From the south came a Syriac tradition, carried from Syria and Mesopotamia into the southern provinces. This form of Christianity was more popular among ordinary people, with a communal spirit and less rigid hierarchy. Later, from the west came a Greco-Roman current, brought through Cappadocia in Asia Minor. This Western form was more institutional, more closely tied to church hierarchy and Greek-Roman culture. Over time, it was this Greco-Roman Christianity that gained dominance and established itself as the official form of the faith in Armenia. The adoption of Christianity in Armenia did not mean that the entire kingdom suddenly became Christian overnight. Far from it. Armenia was a divided realm, and the spread of the new faith was gradual, uneven, and often contested. Resistance came both from the common people and from the nobility. Many magnates, opposed to the pro-Roman stance of the monarchy, embraced Zoroastrianism instead. Even the successors of Gregory the Illuminator faced danger. His son Vertanes, who became patriarch after his brother Aristokles, narrowly survived an assassination attempt by pagans at his seat in Ashteshat. By 365, the church attempted to impose order through the Council of Ashteshat led by Patriarch Nerses I. The council banned pre-Christian customs such as consanguineous marriages, pagan-style funerals, and polygamy. One major obstacle was language. In the early centuries, Christian liturgy was recited in Greek or Syriac, languages foreign to most Armenians. For the common people, Christianity often remained distant, even incomprehensible. That changed in the early 5th century, when the scholar clergyman Mesrop Mashtats, with the support of King From Shapua and Patriarch Isaac, invented the Armenian alphabet. For the first time, the Bible and the works of the Church Fathers were translated into Armenian, allowing ordinary believers to hear the gospel in their own tongue. Onslaught in the mid-5th century, Persia made one last attempt to turn Armenia back to the old faith. King Yazdegerd II tried to impose Zoroastrianism, winning over some nobles but igniting fierce resistance. The campaign collapsed. By that time, Christianity had already taken root too deeply. In hindsight, Trdat III's decision was nothing short of visionary. He made in the early 4th century what Rome itself only declared decades later under Theodosius, and what other monarchs across Europe would not choose until centuries afterwards. By turning Armenia into the first Christian kingdom, Tiridates took a bold gamble to distance his realm from Persia and sharpen Armenia's distinct identity. That gamble became the most consequential decision in Armenian history, and it worked better than anyone could have imagined. The Armenian kingdom eventually lost its sovereignty, but the people never lost their identity. Christianity became the iron framework that allowed Armenians to survive invasions, defeats, persecution, and foreign rule. Had Tiridates chosen differently, Armenian culture might well have been absorbed into Persia, as so many others were.